All right. Long overdue. All of a sudden, my stuff is just going haywire here, but let me check my mic again. All right, there you go. All right, now the Catoctin Iron Furnace update is a follow up to my live streamed episode. If you haven't already checked it out, it is called Catoctin Iron Furnace and the Avery Ancestral Burial Grounds. Now, it's supposed to be a burial location of my ancestors per the genetic company DNA database websites, if that makes sense. All right, let's go ahead and begin. Now, with the previous episode of the Catoctin Iron Furnace original video, it actually talks about the Catoctin Iron Furnace, the remains that were found. I think I talked about my thoughts about the overall being connected to the burial grounds. I talked about my communication with the archaeologists, the emails. Actually, I talked with her on the phone several times, and we communicate by email as well. I did receive an update regarding the surnames and the haplogroups that are attached to the remains and how they connect to me. Now, remember that video. I have other videos that are in the playlist regarding surnames and haplogroups. And if you haven't already checked them out, go ahead and check them out. All right, so we will review my tree to find out where my ancestors and who they actually are, and who my DNA matches are that link us to the Catoctin Iron Burial Grounds. We're going to play with some surnames, going in and out of some genetic websites, look up some things, Google some things, DuckDuckGo them, whatever I need to do to get you to kind of actually see what it is that I am trying to communicate to you. We'll be pulling up my true ancestry webpage. And do remember that the 4 states that are involved with the Catoctin Iron Furnace, I call it massacre, because that's exactly what happened, are Pennsylvania, Maryland, North Carolina, and Virginia. All right? Those 4 states actually will form you already know that those are some of the first 13 colonies in which the colonizers came and they began to settle there, of course, wage war. But with the Catoctin, I'm constantly being thrown instances or references to slavery and trying to make the slave, and then they also quote them as workers, be African. I'm coming to the conclusions that not everyone buried there were African, especially if they were waging war on the inhabitants of the North and Southeast coast, and especially of those states: Virginia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Oh, actually five, and Maryland. Those are the main states in which the Powhatan, the Oneida, Yamasee, Tuscarora, the Lumbee tribes, all of those tribes were in that area, and much more tribes. So those are not the only tribes. When I mention certain tribes, those are not the only inhabitants of the United States. It wasn't the United States at first, but those are not the original, I mean, the only Aborigine indigenous to that North and Southeast coast. So when I reference a few, those, it's just because I am focused on them for that moment. Now, those five states. Let me get into what the update is. Now, the Catoctin furnace, the actual burial remains are being excavated by archaeologists. Originally, someone in the state of Maryland was excavating the area for a pass through, or a expressway, if we will, and they came across the burial remains of humans. The state of Maryland then called in archaeologists to review the remains, and then they determined that the remains were connected to the Catoctin furnace that operated there before the 1800s. This is actually how the Catoctin furnace looks. This is how it looked. It looks like it's in a serene place, but it actually looks frightening. And when we think about who was working there, enslaved Africans, enslaved Aborigines, indigenous that was taken from other islands and areas of the Americas, brought there to work, to be enslaved there. Oftentimes, again, they're being referred to as workers for their skills. And we know during that time, they brought no one over here to work just because they were good workers. They enslaved them. So they were not workers, they were enslaved. They were there against their will. And if you look at this looks extremely overwhelming. It looks hot, because once a furnace goes, it looks hot. The heat, working there when you didn't want to, the weight of the raw materials, or the weight of the finished product, which was metal. Adult men and women worked there. Children of all genders worked there. And many didn't make it over a certain age. Many didn't even make it past 30. Some passed, left the earth at 16. In my earlier video, I also explained to you how one female who was believed biracial, or her child and she were biracial, or the child alone was biracial. How the I think it was 6-month old, was laid on top of her. So and it is stated that the work was excruciating. It caused r- what is similar to rickets. The iron in the metal goes into the bloodstream and cause bone malnormalities. The work was difficult for them. All right, so I'm going to read this caption here that's located on the website. Um, it actually states, step back in time. It's also it's actually a historical society where you can go and visit and take tours there throughout the years, because they try to imitate the life of the persons that were enslaved there and had to do the work. So they have someone um, imitating the enslaved or the free workers, and the churches like the Moravian churches, and I'll talk about that as well, how they were when they came, their interactions with the enslaved or free workers. The owners, we'll get into who the owners of the Catoctin furnace actually were, and how they got here. But it says, step back in time, explore the unique Catoctin furnace living history village. The Catoctin Furnace Historical Society Incorporated commemorates, studies, and preserves the rich history of this historic industrial village, including the architecture, cultural landscapes, lifeways, and foodways of the enslaved Africans, free African Americans, and European immigrant laborers and families. Now remember, the people of today have a very difficult time stating whether a brown skinned, dark skinned person was actually an indigenous aboriginal. Because of the letter that Walter Plecker sent out demanding that anyone that presented himself as a white person, biracial person, or an Indian mulatto should be deemed black. And we know that throughout time that black, Negro, colored, those classifications changed until we got to the African American. We know that not on any censuses where it put African American, or did they refer to any race as African. It was either colored or black and white, and originally Indian, then mulatto as the mixing began, colored, black, Afro American, black American, and then African American. So they have a very difficult time, getting it right when they refer back in time to people as African Americans. All right. So it's just something I wanted to point out. Now we've been over this website. You have to look at the video, my other video streamed about a month ago, to find out actually what I did say in that video. Now, what why am I talking about this? Well, I have a membership with My True Ancestry. That means that I actually took a DNA test with one genetic testing company, and then I uploaded my DNA, the raw DNA, which is all numbers. I know they're not letters, they're all numbers, thousands upon thousands of numbers, to create just the smallest of information. Is how computers and data storage works. I took the data from, let's say, Ancestry.com. I'm going to show you how that's done. So I'm going to go back into here. I'm going to go, let me remember to share the page. All right, there we go. All right, so we're going to create and manage trees. We're going to go in as if we're managing the tree. I'm going to go into this tree. And at the bottom, let's see what it is. Looking for my raw DNA. All right. But can you see the steps that I am taking to get to my raw DNA? All right. So as you can see, it's in the DNA settings. So I went to my profile, clicked on account, and then it took me to DNA settings. This column here, I selected DNA. And as you can see, I only have one DNA test attached to me. I'm going to click it. It's going to take me to test information, where they want to know where to link the DNA results to. So you take the DNA test. If you start a tree or you have more than one tree, they want to know where, okay, we tested you, we have your data. What tree do you want us to link it to? And so the tree that I'll be showing today is where my DNA is linked to. All right, here is where I get the DNA data, which lets me know lets me know who I'm related to, who my matches are, what region supposedly the region, and I'm quote unquoting because you can't see me, what region the testing will apply to, what locations geographically. I also have the ability to take this raw DNA and download it as a zip file. Because I have so many of these, I'm going to go ahead and do it again. But I always try to be careful that I'm not deleting anything. So I try not to even go to this page at all. But here you see it says download DNA test. You can download a zip file of your DNA data. Downloaded data is subject to Ancestry DNA terms and conditions and Ancestry DNA privacy statement. By clicking here, I understand that after I download my DNA data, it will no longer be protected by Ancestry, and I will assume all risk of storing, securing, and protecting this information. So a lot of people really don't even like testing, less known taking the DNA and taking it somewhere else for them to give you information about your DNA, your connections to your ancestors, ancient, classic, or modern, which would be your current DNA matches. All right, so let's look at what it says. What is DNA? Okay, it says DNA data for what is DNA data? Can you see it there? What is DNA data? And this is in reference to downloading your DNA. All right. What is DNA data? DNA data, or machine readable biometric data, is simply the data generated from your DNA sample in partner labs from Ancestry DNA and Ancestry Health Test. This data is used to calculate your DNA ethnicity estimates results, match you to your genetic relatives, and predict your traits. The number of DNA data points available for you to download depends on the DNA testing technology used to generate this information. There may be two types of DNA data files available for download depending which technology was used to analyze your DNA. And as you can see there with the hyperlink, it says standard DNA data file included with your purchase, available to all customers regardless of DNA testing technology used. Variant call format file if DNA was analyzed with next generation sequencing technology. So I guess that's an additional test. I don't know what that test is for. Let's see. So all I do is I'm going to copy and paste this. I'm going to take it to Google and then I'll find out what it is. That's how you elevate yourself as you go along. All right, so what is next generation sequencing? It is a technology for determining the sequence of DNA or RNA to study genetic variation associated with diseases or other biological phenomena, introduced for commercial use in 2005. All right, so it basically has to do with the genomes, medical, and probably chromosome distances. All right, so I am going to go back to where you are. You didn't get to see that definition. So that is what I'm doing with the DNA test. Give me a second to get back to where I was. All right, so I'm going to go back to the download DNA test. I'm going to click the agreement. I'm going to click continue. And it sent it to my email, but I have to go to the email account, send the code back to them, I guess. But I'm going to take you down that journey with me. Let me see. Hasn't actually come up yet. Shout out to all the genealogy geeks and dorks out there for the love of genealogy. All right, so that code hasn't come yet. Usually my stuff comes fairly quickly, but somebody's been doing something with my IP address. All right, So that is how I order the raw DNA. Let's say that this took place without them having asked me for that code at my email address, because I went to my email address, it's not there. I refreshed 3 or 4 times. I'm back in there again. You just can't see me. Now, let's say that that request went through. What happens is the DNA, a zip file downloads to my computer. I go to my computer files, pull it up, and if I actually I have to open it up by extracting it. Once it's extracted, it will open up and I will see data. And the data would be nothing but numbers. It's not going to be in a Word document file. It's more of like a scratch pad. So it's nothing but numbers. I would take that file untampered with, meaning I will not go in and type on it. I'm not going to go in and add anything to it or take away anything. I go to my true ancestry. I take that file and I would then upload it. As you can see here, it says taking a test but need help getting your DNA file. See the download instructions. I would take that file and upload it to my true ancestry. And what they're going to do is take the data and then compare it to their studies. And my true ancestry actually is a deep dive company that provides uh, DNA matches as well as your ancient and your classic ancestors. The modern would be your DNA matches. So mummies or excavations, burial grounds, no matter where it's at across the nation that you are in, they take the remains of whatever they find and then they take your DNA data and match it based on the chromosomes or the haplogroups that we've already discussed. They also compare phonemes. I'm sorry, not phonemes, phonemes, which would probably be bone structure, hair, if there's any skin still remaining, skin color, clothing, and then they match it to the civilizations. Now, my true ancestry, if you have ancestry tests, you can download it. If you have a 23andMe, you can download your raw DNA. My heritage, if you took a test at Family Tree DNA or Living DNA, I've actually uploaded to all of these. I don't think I have with Dante and Nebula. I know for a fact I haven't, but everywhere else I have downloaded my raw DNA. So every company is totally different with what they're specializing in. But and they also have their own genetic testing. Some can have saliva, some can have uh, BLOOD or body fluids or hair um, to do genetic testing. Now, in earlier videos, remember I went over autosomal DNA, we went over genomes, we went over the Y-DNA, which is the male line haplogroup, as you can see here, and the mtDNA testing tells you your tells you your female line haplogroup. Now, once I uploaded my raw DNA to my True Ancestry, I think it took, let's say 24 hours for my True Ancestry. Usually, upload doesn't take that long, probably like 5 minutes, but I believe that my True Ancestry took longer than that. They sent an email letting me know that the raw DNA was uploaded. Welcome to the site. And then I went back and began going into the website. Now, this is how the first page of this is the first page of the results for my True Ancestry. You have to click in. Now, I like the my True Ancestry website, but there's a lot of unnecessary stuff going on down here, like the kits. And I'm thinking that more than likely an upgrade, which is here, is needed. I'm currently at level 6. But for the most part, it's just it appears that they need a lot more organization, but it is a very, very good site. I only seen one small change this year, and I'll explain it on another video. I think they kind of made up for it, but it just seems, I don't know, it needs a lot more organization. Okay, so they get into the civilizations. After you upload, you're able to go in, do some clicking around. They give you information. Your DNA is compared with archaeological samples from these ancient civilizations, which means that this blood is in me. One huge, I'm working with my keypad instead of my mouse, so things are kind of janky right now. All right, the indigenous peoples of North America. Also, the ancient Egyptians. I remember the Aztecs. And I'm trying to get us to the Ganches because I have most recently did some videos about the Ganches and its connections to the Israelites. There we have them. The Ganches were some of the original inhabitants to the Canary Islands after war kept being waged against them by Alexander the Great and the Sidonians. Don't quote me on the Sidonians, but definitely Alexander the Great. So they actually went and cohabitated on the Canary Islands. They were the first there to be there. They are black. And when war was waged against them, they supposedly were merchants between that whole triangle pre BC. So the trading, the bartering, the traveling between those islands, the islands and the Americas, were already taking place before Christ. Please use scriptures wisely and more than one valuable source to confirm what you need to be confirmed. Okay, so I'm going to go back into civilizations. I think this is probably the only thing that's up in here, which it is. Okay, I'm going to go into population and I'll get on with the update. So here's the populations. This is okay too. I think it just needs a little, I guess it's if you have all of your haplogroups and would be able to I guess, know which haplogroups are your mom's, which haplogroups are your dad's, which is Y, mtDNA, and then Y. And then you would select which group for them to be able to pull which population is on which line, paternal or maternal. So I'm going to do Aboriginal. That's autosomal. Let's see what they have for it. Either one for there. Okay. I'm not going to go in here because it starts getting into, and which I'm in it all the time. It's just not relevant right now to what I want to do. So I'm going to go back to the results. And come on, come on. I think it's with the saga. I'm going to go here. I know it is full detailed timeline. And this is what I'm looking for, the ancestral timeline. This is a full detailed timeline. My true ancestry after the upload of the raw DNA is able to take me back 5000 BC with any remains that are already listed. Now, I actually was able that something. Remember, I told you there were some changes because I was able to be connected to the Ramesses, the Egyptian tombs, Cleopatra, and many others. So I don't know why all of a sudden a month ago or a month and a half ago, those results are no longer here. And sometimes when you contact them, they have a tendency, and I'm not talking about my true ancestry, but I've in the past I've contacted other DNA companies, and then is for speaking out or saying something, things get changed. And I believe there's no doubt that with them seeing what's actually missing from my page is what I posted in the past year on TikTok. So this particular timeline is, for some reason, is only at 5000 BC. Now I'm going to take you along this timeline, and I am going to go, that's 5000 years before Christ or the Messiah came to the earth. Now 1535 B 1535 AD, just because someone was a slave, please do not think that they were African. Blacks were the first in Mexico. Please find out how a Mexican became a Mexican. All right, as you can see here, the Yucatan as well, but that is not what I'm trying to get at. I am actually trying to get at the Catoctin iron furnace ancestors. All right, now there is a video that I made. I also have relatives or ancestors in the Saint Martin, the Canary Islands, Mexico. Those are your originals. And where else? The Panama Canal. Now here, beginning 1810 AD, 1810 AD, enslaved adult female laborer, Catoctin iron working furnace, Antebellum, Maryland. The genetic distance is 2.41. I'm not 10, which would push me away from her. I'm not 20. I am 2, 2 degrees. All right. Then there is another one. You're going to see the genetic distances change, which lets you know that this is a totally different person. 2.563 over there to your right. And then we go to the next one, 2.754. It's a whole family of them. 2.838. We have 3.105 and 3.294. 3.592, genetic distance 3.74, genetic distance 4.017, genetic distance 4.065, genetic distance 4.066, genetic distance 4.364, genetic distance 4.432, genetic distance 4.646, genetic distance 4.647, genetic distance 5.295, genetic distance 5.311, genetic distance 5.329, genetic distance 5.529, genetic distance 5.794, genetic distance 7.982, genetic distance 11.97, genetic distance 12.1, genetic distance 15.52, genetic distance 16.79. Now, anyone with common sense will know that's a reason to be concerned and to continue research with this. So it's not one person, but it's a whole slew of family members. Now, the update, what the update will entail, I'll show that to you in a moment. Now, this is around 1810. I'm not for certain about the actual, is this their passing? It has to be. I'm going to show you why. Now, I don't know. No, I'm going to take that back because everyone has 1810. Now, when referring to the opening of the Catoctin iron furnace and the actual closing of the Catoctin iron furnace, as well as when the excavation began in 1970s. A lot has happened in between that. Now, I'm going to take you to my TikTok with the TikToks that I had actually created for this. I don't know where. I don't know why I'm all the way. All right. So, if for those of you who have not yet followed me on or at TikTok, My History Verified is my page. All right. This page is for, of course, ancestry and genealogy research, and definitely regarding the Amerindian community. Now, I actually had this all pulled and ready for us, so it looks like I got to continue to go back and find it again. Thank you for joining me. If you are here and have been waiting for this update, are you ancestry and genealogy geeks and nerds? All right, now what I'm looking for? I'm looking for my post where when I first began doing the research um, with the results from my true ancestry regarding the Catoctin iron furnace ancestral connection. And I mean, TikTok made me so mad. I started deleting a lot of my stuff because they make me so mad at times. They're not fair. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna start deleting my stuff. So I actually don't know what I've deleted, but I do know that a lot of the Catoctin iron furnace um, research is still here. I also have it downloaded too. So I'm almost there. The reason why I'm going slow is because my mouse is not working and I am using my keypad. All right. This is one of the last videos here. All right, can you hear that one? This has volume. I don't know what the volume is. But with this particular post, it references the Catoctin furnace. The picture of the person that you're seeing is one of the 3 owners of the Catoctin iron furnace. One of them was a governor. He was a governor, and his with his 2 brothers. I believe in the 70s, so around what I forget what time, but he actually lost his position in as a governor, and some of them got their positions taken. I don't know which one it is, but we'll come across it. But this is one of my TikToks on the research of the furnace. I don't know why we can't hear. These videos have sound. Okay, let's go to the next one. Let's find. One is there. Let's see.
It goes 1 by 1, even 2 by 2. Everybody on the floor, let me show you how we do. It goes 1 by 1, even 2 by 2. Everybody on the floor, let me show you how we do. Let's go. Dip it low, then you bring it up slow. Wind it up one time, run it back once more. It goes one by one, even two by two. Everybody on the floor, let me show you how we do. Let's go. Dip it low, then you bring it up slow. Wind it up one time, run it back once more. It goes one by one.
All right, so that is one of the TikToks. Let's see this one. Okay, so I wrote, did you know? Imagine work and heat so gruesome.
When you speak.
All right, so I wrote, imagine work and heat so gruesome that it becomes the end existence for some, including children. Then the economics of it impressed someone to elect that person as a supreme judge and governor, which also impresses a president to allow his daughter to marry or his offspring to marry that governor. And they all inherited and benefited from that wealth of overworking humans, children, elderly, physically handicapped, sick, ancestors of others. All right, so that is how that TikTok went. So please go ahead and like, subscribe, and share if you are with me to this point. All right. This picture of the female here is supposedly an ancestor of mine whose remains are at the burial site in Maryland. It's not that they know that that's how her face is. They actually did a reconstruction of course, using material to reconstruct the face. They added the scarf on the head because those were at those times that's what was being worn, and this is how they got the image of her. So it's a reconstruction of one of the persons at the burial sites. I'm gonna play this one.
I was born by the river. I was born by the river in a little town. Just like the river I've been running ever since.
All right, that is my TikTok for the research of the Catoctin iron furnace. I'm going to go ahead and leave TikTok and go back to my true ancestry, I believe. Okay, I believe that this is over 30. Let me make sure my sound is okay because StreamYard and YouTube be tripping. Okay, so it is working. All right, so this is over 30 ancestors that I am connected to, a persons forced to work, enslaved, passing away before they were 60, some in their 30s, some in their 16. I mean, at 16, there were babies buried at the Catoctin iron working furnace. Now, remember again, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, Maryland, and who else? Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, and Maryland. I think I'm always missing one. All right. Now, the connection between those 5 states, and we can go to the map, is that the owner of the Catoctin furnace, which is 3 brothers, actually 4 brothers, Thomas, Baker, Roger, and James Johnson. So the last surname to the slave owners and the owners of that company, and one becoming a governor, the surname is Johnson. The Catoctin furnace was erected in 1774. It was created to create pig iron, and the pig iron was used definitely in 1776, which is one of our the Revolutionary Wars against Britain, but it was used for ammunition, and the ammunition was cannonballs. So they were drooling in that heat, in this hot place, in this hot place, forced to work probably sun up, sundown, or whenever it was requested, not requested, but demanded to push out any items of request. I guarantee you, if I was to go there or we were to visit the Catoctin furnace in Maryland, I guarantee you that place is huge. Huge. I'm trying to get at the maps, but it was actually used again to make cannonballs. They also used the materials used. The materials made in the furnace were plates made for a ship called USS Monitor, but they're stating that it's not confirmed. But the furnace was open at that time, that the USS Monitor was being created or built. Now, there are 41,799 descendants of those enslaved at the Catoctin furnace. They've identified 41,799 people. Those almost 100 people or more created 41,799 living descendants today. I've already shared with you that they are paying reparations to the descendants of those enslaved at that furnace. It is known that the 4 Johnson brothers owned the furnace beginning at 1793 all the way up until 1811. I wanted to show you the map and who actually played different parts in knowing that this was going on. All right, this is where the Catoctin iron furnace is located. It's located in Maryland. And now remember, this is for an update. A lot of stuff I'm reviewing is already on another video. So this video was not meant to go into an hour or more. It actually was meant to be an update. So if I zoom in or out, you'll see that Route 15 had to been where they began to excavate to build the highway and ran smack dead into the remains. I'm told personally by the archaeologists that when that was happening, they shut down any more digging and immediately called archaeologists out to review the remains. The area was roped off, and then they began investigating, tagging bodies, preserving locations and areas. All right, so what I'm doing is zooming in to show you the distances between the 5 states mentioned. And there's a reason why I'm mentioning 5 states. Maryland is where the iron furnace is. The remains of the different persons buried at the locations came from Pennsylvania, Maryland, North Carolina, Virginia. That's the purpose of me mentioning the 4 or 5 states. It's one more, but I'm not for certain. 5 states. North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania. Is it Virginia? 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see the route. You can see we know that in North Carolina is where the Aborigines had to fight for land being taken. They also, during the wars, were imprisoned and held as prisoners of wars. They were shipped out to different islands and to Europe, especially Britain. The Aborigines ran into the mountains to escape the wars, but they weren't, and I say this not as if they were running from the wars, because they fought the wars. And I'm asking you and challenging you to look up the wars of the North and Southeast Coast Aborigines. Even the Chickasaw, who stretched from Mississippi, their angle of where they traveled hit the North Carolina paths. Okay, from Mississippi and go this route. I know the paths of the Chickasaw because that's part of my research for ancestors. All right, so we have North Carolina, Virginia. They in those days, the wealthy, meaning your politicians, those, many of those that became governors, They were the ones who were the agents, those communicating with the Aborigines to backstab them or to do wordplay or to find out who they were, to trick them, to get them to sign documents, to take the logistics back to the government at that time. At first, remember, it was British at first for the north and southeast coast. The Spaniards had already conquered the west coast. So those logistics, they had to communicate. They they interacted. They had parties. They threw balls. They passed slaves, whether they were African or Aborigines, Moors thrown in there too. And the three of them all look alike, whether they were mulatto, mixed, full blood. They basically intertwined and you could not tell them apart. So even if they caught someone who wasn't to be enslaved, oftentimes it was very difficult to even prove that they were not enslaved based on skin color. But they traded humans. They went to the parties. How do I know this? Because I've read enough documents in my own tree to see who went to parties, who got married, who was in the Revolutionary and the Civil Wars, who married and took the Aborigine women as prisoner of wars and then as their wives. I know what they said when they said that they would be whitewashing the history or the indigenous tribes because it was much easier to write them off rather than fight them, which is why they ended up getting the Africans from, excuse me, Africa. Now, since we're bringing this up, do you kind of think that we know that the King of Prussia sent people to the Americas to find out if the Aborigines were the um, Israelites? Don't you think everybody else that came was looking to find out as well? To continue this anger and that they've had when they were fighting them already, traveling and trading, merchants together, mariners, flip the map upside down, do all that you got to do. Fill some of the land spaces. A lot of the land spaces you already know are man made. I mean, not land masses, but a lot of the lakes are man made. Step outside your box and do your research. All right, so pointed out how those four states look together. Where did the inhabitants of the Maryland burial site, where did they come from? They came from within those 4 to 5 states that I've mentioned. Um, of course, probably passed along as slaves, saw them. I mean, prisoner. They keep saying that they're African, but I object. Seeming their hatred and their need for additional, I mean, to continue a lie to go, they're gonna say everybody was a slave. I mean, everyone was a African. Our paperwork is not saying that. It's not showing that. Now, I'm also going to show you which ancestors are falling within this, who I believe that the relatives are, because I originally, in a conversation with the archaeologist on the phone, phone to phone, where she gave me original names, and I believe they were Patterson, Johnson, and Martin. All right. So I'm going to go into Ancestry to show you those names. So we went into the maps. Let me see what else I got for you. Now, also, when the workers were on the at the Maryland iron furnace, they were visited by churches, specifically the Moravian Church. Who is the Moravian Church? If you got a chance, please look that up. The Moravians are from Germany. As usual, that's who's involved. But the Moravian missionaries didn't come to America to the United States until 1735. And they came from Saxony, Germany. Supposedly, they came to minister to the few German immigrants, to Native Americans, which is in those days the Aborigines, Israelites, and to enslaved Africans. The missionaries, who were messengers of logistics, they were financially supported by those that were enslaved. So while they were enslaved, they had to pay for the missionaries to minister to them. Now, the Moravians traveled between Pennsylvania, Georgia, and who else? I believe those two. Priests actually preaching the gospel with actually, they were secretly Catholic Jesuits as well. Okay. They also were involved in Canada, but they traveled between Pennsylvania. Now, some of these towns may or may not be familiar with you. Remember, this is during colonization. The towns of Bethlehem in Pennsylvania, Nazareth, Emmaus, and Lydus. Then there were also towns in North Carolina. And I think, yeah, I believe Winston and Salem. Once again, they are Germans. All right. They came while the workers were working. The work was stopped. They would listen to the missionaries come in, pray to them, smile. And you know how that scene went. And then once the missionaries left, they went back to work. So the missionaries played a huge part in slavery, watching the slavery take place, watching the wars take place, watching the discrepancies and the atrocities take place against the Aborigines who looked very similar to or based on skin color, not necessarily phonemes. Not phonemes, phenomes. Anyway, not necessarily face structure or we're thinking about the times in which this all took place. Now, to get deeper as to who the Germans were of the Moravian Church, if they were Hussites, if you keep digging on your time, you'll find out who the Hussite is, what descendant the Hussites are. I can do a quick check. If you got your phone, you can do your quick check too. Hussite descendants of. They were the descendants of the Czechoslovakians, the Germans. That's not what I'm trying to get at. I am actually trying to get at who, according to biblical terms, which is the Bohemians, it might not even go back that far. Trust me. Nope. They only are visible during the 1400s. All right. So on your time, please do look that up to edify your knowledge. Always take out a dictionary or an encyclopedia, pen and paper, write it down, think, contemplate on it, build up your information base. There's nothing nerdy about it because we're going back into what this is all about, which is lineage. And then you have religion fanatics thrown in there, withholding or giving the information that they want you to have. But we're going right on back to lineages and who is the descendant of who. How were hybrids created or those migrated? Scriptures from Genesis leads you on. Now, if you really want a timeline or a let's see, a family tree of Noah, just simply type in family tree of Noah and you follow that tree. The tree will take you back and then it will bring you forward. The only thing has changed, if you find something say Moabite, you type in Moabite. It will tell you who that group of ethnicity is, or that nation or that tribe, and then you just relay it to who's fighting and who's causing the chaos today. If your pastor is not teaching about lineage, huge problem, because that's what scripture is about, lineage, and the chosen people following his instructions and using the Bible that it is supposed to be untouched as a book of navigation through life after any curses and sin. All right. So next we will be going into my so we'll be going over haplogroups, but I actually want to get to those emails. Updated emails. Give me a second. Catoctin. Once again, thank you for joining me. Please hit the subscribe button, the like, please share. Do leave your feedback on the information that I'm going over, which is the Catoctin iron furnace, giving you a update regarding the DNA of the remains of those that are supposed to be an ancestor of mine. How did I find out? Via my true ancestry. Did I do further research? Of course I did. Now, I went over the emails in the other video, the past episode video. I'm not going to go into it today. Now, I will be going over an email updated September 28th. It says, Dear Catoctin descendant, and it's from the archaeologist that I told you I was communicating with in another video. She wrote this on a Thursday, 12:51 p.m. It says, Dear Catoctin descendant, we are moving quickly to the next phase of the research, which will be custom analysis for documented Catoctin direct descendants. We will begin with two families identified through genealogical research, the Patterson and Summers families. I also want to begin with an owner connection if possible. Please email me as ASAP if you have a connection with a Johnson, Mayberry, Blackford, Thunberg, Bryan, McPherson, or Egging, or EGE is the actual spelling of the name, or Iron Master Rawlings. Thanks. And it's signed by, not signed, but it is from the archaeologist herself. So I'm going to go into that and then bring you back out of here. There's the email. All right. Now, something else I want to do. All right. So there's another email. In the emails dated the next day after the Thursday, September 28th email, she sent an email Friday, September 29th at 7 o'clock in the morning. It says, Dear Catoctin descendants, attached is a preliminary list of all 27 mtDNA, which would be the mother's lineage haplogroups, within the cemetery remains for your reference. I'm going to pull that up in one moment so that you know that it is true. I go into that email. And then come back out. Now, what's going on? All right, so there we have it. I don't know what's going on with that, but The first email, not the very first email, but the email that I read today, the first one discussed the surnames. So what I did was took those surnames because she had already given me Patterson and Johnson as a surname. And what I did was took those surnames and went to ancestry.com and began to search those surnames. She doesn't know this, but within 2 hours or less, I ended up finding the Pattersons and knowing who that ancestor was who was in that area. But guess what they are from? Take a guess. Originally from from North Carolina. Who do you think that those ancestors that are within my tree that is connected? I believe to be connected to that Maryland iron furnace. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. It is the Tuscarora tribe, not the slaves that they're talking about, but that line with that ancestor was the is related to the governor of Mississippi when he was the governor. They came from Pennsylvania, excuse me, Virginia, Maryland. I see correspondence of them dealing with, excuse me, going to different parties or gatherings or balls. And remember the connection, governor to governor, elite to elite. The connection between my ancestor and that Catoctin iron furnace. And I'm not seeing any Africans. Tuscarora Indian. If you have done any research, you would know that the Tuscarora Indians have fought just like every other tribe, but the majority of those that fought so fiercely and so hard and so savagely, which is where they're getting that term from, because if you wage war on someone and you begin to impregnate their females and you try to remove the men and the chiefs, you try to wipe out the tribes and take out the land. You can't compromise and allow them to say, here, you can have some and we welcome you, but you can't do this to us. Just become overtaken. The Tuscarians were overtaken with backstabbing, where the agents or the missionaries played tribe against tribe. The Tuscarians as well fled to the mountains, not ran away from the wars and fighting, but they played the Yamasee against them. They played the Cherokee against the Tuscaroras of North Carolina. They took some to New York, gave those in New York special privileges and treaties, forcing the ones that were the chiefs of the Tuscaroras that did not fold to have to go between to New York and back down when they thought it was safe to return back to the North Carolinas, only to return to see that their land had been settled by the Europeans. I have letters where the chiefs begged, listen, you're wiping out our people. Please call off your people. That didn't happen. So please look into the Tuscarean Wars. Please look into them. That took place. So we're going to get into the haplogroups. Let me get my haplogroup here. All right, the haplogroup document here came from that archaeologist. To validate what I'm saying, I'm going to go back into that email, pull it up for you. So that you can see. I'm doing the same thing. I don't know why this isn't letting me. What all you have to do is keep on going in it. Maybe because there's more than one window open. Okay. Now, remember this email here says, attached is a preliminary list of all 27 mtDNA haplogroups within the cemetery remains for your reference. I do not know why it's not allowing me to arrow down, but it's as if there is more than one window open, and there isn't. So at the underneath that telephone number, that link, and then the telephone number is another link of the attachment for the document. So that is where I'm getting this list from, that colorful list. The haplogroups. Now, if you have not, again, if you have not looked at my other videos introducing the haplogroups to you, both the mtDNA and the yDNA, as well as the autosomal, please do so. But this is the haplogroups that are in the burial site. For reference, I actually should be have another email open, and that email has the burial site, and the numbers would be on the burial site. Let me see. All right, so this is how the haplogroups look. Now, let me go and look for the map, and then I'll bring that map up for you. I can't get to this. This is wow. Okay. Um, I was gonna pull up the burial site that was sent to me by the archaeologist, and so it would have been um, like for instance when we went to the geographical map of Maryland, and that pinpointed area was the Catoctin iron furnace location. So that means that the furnace is there, the residential housing is there, the overseer's um, building was there, and any other buildings for, I guess, for like housing, food, or when the church came. I don't know what all is on that burial site, but it showed, like, for instance, um, if you look at the yellow part, you see the first column says skeletal code, second column burial number, third column mtDNA haplogroup. If I was able to bring that burial map up, which would be the location of everything, including where each body is buried. The bodies are then color coded as well as maybe a parent with two children that share the same haplogroups, and then they would have red. And then a single person might, like, you see that one haplogroup underneath the blue there, only one person shares that haplogroup, and that's burial number 6. I because I can't bring up the actual burial, that PDF that she gave me, which was a very, very nice map. I can't bring it up. Okay, so the haplogroups. If we were to go into look up the haplogroups, we can start with the first one, which is J1B1A1A. So on my page, I'm going to copy and paste it. I'm going to go to a window, open it up in a browser. I'm going to search for the haplogroup. It's actually haplogroup J. I'm going to bring you along. Give me a second. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Okay. It's actually haplogroup A. I mean J. mtDNA. All right. Now, at the top up there is the Y-DNA. So I scrolled down to get to the mitochondrial DNA, which is the mtDNA, which is the mother side. Only the mother can carry the mtDNA. You can only get it from your mother's line. She passes it along to her female children. So if we click J, like human mtDNA, haplogroups are letter A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. So I'm going to click J. Let's see where that takes me. The haplogroup J is here. We're going to see what that is. It is a West Asian from the Caucasus. All right. Now, I think we saw JA1. What was that? JA1A. Probably that last one down there. Give me a second. J1B1A. J1B1A. J1B1A is not here. J1B1. Still European. Now, she gave a list. The list doesn't necessarily mean that the J1 haplogroup is my ancestor. But she's letting us know that in burial number 32, J1, B1, A1, A, who appears to be a mutation of Asian and Caucasus, is in that burial site. So we're going to move on to burial number 4, which is LO. I'm going to take you back there. LO. So the second one is going to be LOA 1B1A. All right. So I'm going to go and look that up. Shout out to all the nerds and the geeks, the genealogy nerds and geeks. Uh, Too many numbers. Already that's bringing up African American. So I'm going to take you with me on that journey. Give me a second to present it for you. Present it to you. Uh, all right. So the group LO, L0, is Central and Eastern African. I'm not going to go on Wikipedia because Wikipedia is not really telling me what ethnicity it is or which region. So going into the National Library of Medicine, the haplogroup beginning with LO is from Central and Eastern Africa, dating back to 60,000 years. Remember, this is BC. So that gets to go into the Ramesses and the Cleopatras and life before all of that. All right, so that's what the LO is. I'm going to go into the Wikipedia anyway, even though. All right, so catch up with me. All right, so for the haplogroup LO, Wikipedia says that the place of origin is Southern Africa or Southern East Africa. Doesn't mean that this is where we come from. It's just the skeletal remains and DNA is found there because of migration. And in those southern areas, there are a lot of hunter-gatherers, a lot of migrators. They traveled all around this world to places that were inhabitable. Now, if you are not sure about the argument or the information that is going across about where is Africa located, is it here or is it in America? There's a lot of information. If for instance, I'm gonna break it down like this. If you have people saying too many woke people, you have people saying we're not gonna be teaching the information that in no more Black history. If someone says we're banning books, you need to educate yourself. You need to find the information before it is totally wiped off of this internet easily as it is. Even in physical libraries, books are being removed off the shelves based on the discretion of the person that is in charge and the person being demanded to do so. So it's important to educate your children and your family members. All right? Double checking my sound. Okay. Because YouTube be turning my sound out them and what's your name? All right, so LOD is the Kosian from Southern Africa. LOK is the Kosians as well. Remember, they are hunter-gatherers. Haplogroup LOF, they're from the Tanzania, East African part. LOA, Southeast Africa, hunter-gatherers. All right. That's how you do your haplogroup checks. That's how you do your research. You go in, you go out. You go in, you go out. It seems like it's boring. It seems like it's a lot of reading, but in order for you to understand all of this, you have to. It's a constant. If you get that smartphone in your hand, it's a constant reading, swiping, constant reading, swiping. But find credible sources that back up the information that you do find. All right. So those are the haplogroups. Those are we can do another haplogroup. Let's do another one. All right. So here we are here. Let's go into the blue haplogroup. I think the L we kind of figure out. Well, we went into the LO. Let's see. What can it be? I'm gonna try the L4. I'm gonna come back in, bring you in so that you have an idea of what I'm pulling up. And where I'm getting that information from. Give me 1 second. All right, almost there. All right. So what I did was jumped down to the bottom of this list. And I decided to select a haplogroup that does not look familiar. I've seen them before. I'm just saying it's not, 4 and 3 and all of that is not always seen like that. So if I take L4B 2B1 and look it up, you'll see what it's talking about. See what ethnicity it brings up. One second. I'm going to come back and get you, bring you along. Oh. All right, so L4. Let's find out what it is. I always scroll down to see if there's something that's going to catch my eye. All right, advances in the bioarchaeology of African American earliest ancestors. Everything is African. Everything is African. Knowing full well that Walter Plecker had them put and changed the ethnicities and the races of people and reclassified them. So when I see someone using that terminology, and especially if they're scientists and they know better, wow, look what came up. All right, so this says advances in the bioarchaeology of African Americans' earliest ancestors. Technical report on ancient DNA analysis of 27 African Americans from Catoctin Furnace, Maryland. How ironic that is. How ironic. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and read what it says. It says Catoctin Furnace is an industrial site that functioned from 1776 through 1903 and was operated at least partially by an enslaved workforce until about 1850, when it shifted to paid European laborers. A cemetery including 35 graves, from which the remains of 32 individuals identified with African ancestry were excavated in 1979 through 1980 during construction of a highway that impacted the site. Since then, the human remains have been under the stewardship of the Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History. The goal of this report is to document the successful generation of ancient DNA from 27 individuals from the cemetery. The analysis of the Catoctin individuals is part of a long-term study dedicated to restoring knowledge of the identity, origins, and legacy of the enslaved and free African Americans who labored and were buried at Catoctin Furnace. Now, if it operated in 1776 with slaves, on all the reports that I've read, I haven't read anything said anything about an African. Wills, none of that, because we know that the wars were taking place. If you don't believe me, you can read what happened to Pocahontas's family, not the cartoon. And that's my ancestor as well. Well, her sister is. Right? Refreshing to see ancient DNA reports of our ancestors who were enslaved in the USA. Here we have preprint from Adosian Harney. They sequenced the genomes of 27 African Americans from over 100 years ago. Below, we can see a collection of uniparental markers, most which are predominant among modern populations in West and Central Africa. Burial 32 is an anomaly carrying mitochondrial lineage, J1, B1, A1, A, characteristic of the Near East, Western Europe, and North Africa. European. Burial 14 is an anomaly carrying mitochondrial lineage L4b 2b1, which is primarily found in the Rift Valley, Horn of Africa, Great Lakes, and now regions. On the Y chromosome size, there is an abundance of EV38 derived diversity as well as some rare lineages. Now, let me explain what that means. The Y chromosome is male. So they're saying that there are, and I know this for a fact because the archaeologist verbally told me on the phone, that uh, there was a male biracial teenager and a male biracial 6-month-old. So they're saying that on the Y chromosome sides, there is an abundance of EV38 derived diversity, meaning that person was mixed, as well as some rare lineages like A1B1. Now I'm going to look up A1B1. I'm going to look it up really quick. A1B1. Haplogroup A. North Africa, Central Africa, which would place that person as almost an Ethiopian, but the Pygmy tribe and the Niger Congo also share the haplogroup. And remember, before the wars and during the wars, like the Alexandria, the Sidonian Wars, the Tyrian Wars, a lot of those wars, the people ran, like the Moroccan Wars, the Mediterranean, all of that. Those wars went out and down. Not all the time did they go to, well, they some did go to Asia. There is references that a lot of the blacks during those fights, we're talking BC, migrated to Asia, Australia, the islands. Now, whether they came from the Americas and out, BC, we're talking about before Christ, not during the slavery that they're trying to say, during the slave trade after the colonization started in the 13th or the 1400s here, or the 1500s, the 15, 16, 17, 18. That would be AD. How much of this is true? How much of this is credible? How much of it do you believe that the map is flipped? How much of it do you believe that the Americans, the Americas, is the real promised land, or the Egypt, or Babylon? For me, what all I've read, without any influence and the connections, whew, it's all tying in together. So I'm kind of happy for having paid attention or got it when I got it or was able to learn what I learned when I learned it. Word for word comprehension of scriptures, how much they were tampered with or not, word for word, chapter to chapter, is how I'm able to be here today to speak about what I've learned and connecting everything together. Don't forget to follow me on TikTok as well and like and share. Now, we were able to look up these some of those haplogroups. It's ironic that that last one was the biracial one that I had known about because the archaeologist specifically told me about it. Okay, I'm going to take you back to my ancestry, my true ancestry, which I probably should be at ancestry.com, but I'm going to go here. Go back to the full detailed timeline. I'm going to take you down. And do know that they're saying that all of these uh, uh, remains have been tested on this timeline and I'm related to them. That's not to mention the ones that they're talking about. Well, some of the Mexican is on here. I mean, the original Canaries. What am I talking about? Not the original Canaries. The original inhabitants that went to the Canaries, BC. Those are the same ones that went to Mexico before Mexicans were created. Before they were created. How does a Mexican get created? A Mexican is originally derived from the black man, the black African who mated with the Spaniard, the Mongolian, which is the Siberian, who was able to get over the landmass of from Asia. Remember, the connections were still there. There's proof that that was land or frozen, and they were able to walk across to get to Alaska and down. That explains why the Spaniard has so much had taken over so much land there. They were not supposed to mate with them. That's how that's created. That's how the Mexican is created. All right. So the reason why I wanted to bring you back to the timeline, I wanted to count the actual ancestors with you. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't want to make no mistakes. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 25. I'm related to 25 of the ancestral remains from the 1810 AD burial sites of the Catoctin iron working furnace, Antebellum, Maryland. That's a lot of people. Now, when I did the research, I'm going to take you along there as well to ancestry.com. Ancestry.com. So now to begin looking for the names that they're asking you to find, I'm going to point out who I know is the Pattersons. This branch here. To narrow it down. Now, remember that governor that I told you about? The Noels? Who just got um who just got exposed for taking welfare benefits in the state of Mississippi recently? What's his name? Noel Favor? What's his name? What do you see right there? Leland Noel. Excuse me. Is it Leland? That's the governor? I believe his son. I'm gonna go in here. Now, this how you sum up some stuff. It's constantly going in, it's going out, it's reading documents, it's going through every document. You're looking at the city, you're looking at the state. In 1814, Leland was born. The Catoctin, okay, so that means that he was 6 years old in 1810, or was it 1821 when they found those remains, or they were at the plantation. He was still alive, born and alive before they even closed the furnace up. Now I think he Leland was the mayor. Now, when we go down here, you see the unknown slave. She actually produced a doctor by him. If I click this, her mother and father doesn't come up. This is just a picture I put up there. If I click hints, there are no hints. If I click member connect, I try to see who else is um, researching a particular person. Now, ironically, there's a lynch in that tree line, and you see a person here has that name. Those are, to me, those are all indications. Where'd you get that first name from? Excuse me. Those are their indications. Now, I can go in each one of their trees to see what more information that they have, but I already know that they don't have any. If they did, it will all be popping up for us. Okay, but she produced a doctor. That doctor was left in Leland Noel's will. I'll pull that will up if you don't. He also had a slave schedule. I've been in that slave schedule, but I was trying to go to the will. Probate. Okay, so we go into probate. I'm going to click that, go into the will, where he left that son by the quote unquote unknown slave money and property. Okay. He's down here. The will of Leland Noel. But remember, they came from Virginia. So I'm going to go back in and I'm going to go deeper, a little bit deeper into the tree. One more should be there. Now, I don't know if you just noticed that or not, but you'll see where they were in Virginia and ended up in Mississippi. These are the types of things that you have to pay attention to. My great grandmother was in that area with her mother in Pickens. Actually, I have a picture of my great grandmother working on the Noel's plantation, not as a slave, but I mean, and I used to live with her. I really wish I could ask her the questions of the stuff I know now. So I'm going to go into the gallery and pull up the picture. I found this picture trying to find other information, of course. It's my great grandmother. Her mother was mixed. She is the Tuscaroran, and I've actually found Choctaw as well. And we know that everybody was born in Choctaw, but the Pickens Reservation, I mean, where they lived in Pickens, the Choctaw Reservation is miles north of there, not too far away. Now, I know my granny. This is my great grandmother. And here she would have been 20 something. My great grandmother wore these same hats. Matter of fact, I think I've seen this hat. But she couldn't have been no more than 20 some years old on this picture. This picture is attached to the Sunflower Plantation, um, who has their own pictures up. Not even it's not even attached to the Library of Congress. The Library of Congress probably has these same pictures, but I was searching for information in that area. Looking picture, combing through picture after picture after picture after picture after picture. And I know my granny. She was red. She was red. Her mother red. All right. So the research pulls things like this by typing in names, Googling names, Googling towns, Googling cities and states, Googling, coming up with anything that you can come up with. Now I'm going to go back to the tree. Now, that's my great granny. She is here on the tree. She is actually my mother's husband, which is my mother's grandfather, her father's mother. I've met her mother. I've been around her mother while visiting her for the summer or living with her during my freshman year of high school. Okay, so here she is. She's here, and then that's her father. That's her mother, who is mulatto, and her mother is white. Now, we know that the Noels are what they are. But when you have empty spaces like this lets me know this is the indication of someone being either indigenous or African, or where are they? Just because someone's missing here, do you know how many matches I got confirming this McGaw family in the Noels? I can go in there and show you. Let me go here. Confirmation after confirmation that the Noels are I don't know why my stuff ain't opening up, but baby. All right, so it's confirmation after confirmation with that branch. Now back to the Pennsylvania connection. Who's the Pennsylvania Virginia connection? Who's the elite to elite, governor to governor? This side over here. Remember that Patterson? Here we go. Sorry about that. I don't know why. See that Patterson? Bam, there you go. There's your connection. Now, of course, I have to go in to see if they were in Pennsylvania, if they were in Maryland, if they were here, what were they doing over there? This right here. Now, remember that Tuscarorean connection I told you about? That those are your Pattersons. They're connected to the Johnson. Now look at this Captain McGaw right here. Once you pay attention to here, what do you think the captain of what? Captain of what? Captain of the boats that they used to do the trade from that East Coast down to around to Louisiana or back to Britain or to the islands. So a whole family of captains. You have to think in those terms, back in those terms, in order for you to fill your tree and get the information you need. And then you're checking, like for instance, in this household, he told someone who he was related to is left in reels or whatever, and then that person is born, so you double checking that to see if that's that. Then this person is born and you're double checking the information and the documents and the wills and the church bibles and the information written on the pieces of paper and the napkins and the brown paper bags. And then you're checking the censuses because the census did not get into effect to a certain date. You're checking all of that to verify your relations to your ancestors. That's how you link. This tree continues. My tree goes. I'm sorry about all this stuff keep popping up, but I have my mouse is like bouncing all over the place. So now back to the Catoctin. The Catoctin. All right. Now we're still here with that line. So we're going to go down here. Remember, this is her mother, my great grandmother's mother, who is mulatto on here. Her mom is white. Tom Fisher is European. Now, that don't even mean that he's European. because I'm thinking the Krum and them and the Fisher are native. I could have sworn I found something for Jane, um, which would be a brick wall, because if mom and dad is not there, that means that's a brick wall. If Ben Fisher's mother is not there, that's a brick wall. That means that there's not enough information. There's no information circulating to get it. Now I know how to go in and get it, because I can go into like Family Search or Wiki Tree or something like that, or what's the other one, Find a Grave, and bam, information is going to pop up. But it's a lot of reading, and because I'm constantly trying to gather information for future episodes and other stuff like that, it is a lot of information to try to gather, even though it doesn't take anything to open up a window and then prepare to present an episode to you. It is definitely a lot of reading and a lot of work. But I can break that down, but I guarantee you that I probably got some notes on her. It don't look like it. Let's see. It's ironic that in 1840 she was in North Carolina. She's on the 1870 census as mulatto. But where's the 1870 census at? Now this is something else that um you'll find that certain people have married more than one person, or more than one person with that same last name. So a lot of stuff happens, in incest or marrying of relatives, or no matter what the race is or the ethnicity, a lot of that took place. My next place is to go to my notes. Okay. No, that's for him. Uh, just double checking some stuff. Now, if I'm too tired, okay, now this is how this now I'm when I'm too tired, what I'll do is copy and paste and put my information in my notes section. I do a lot of print screening and printing as well, but because I can go through ink really quick, I will print screen, or of course continue to add in the notes. Now as I was talking, remember we're on connecting those surnames locations to the Catoctin furnace. This is my Tuscaroran line, okay? Which means somebody's not being truthful about somebody being an African American. Unless, because when people talk about Africa, they try to associate the person with African slavery, meaning coming over or coming from somewhere as an African, captured and coming as an African slave. When we predate Africa, we predate slavery. Now, look here, and you'll see information about Jane. It says Johnson's Grove. Now, isn't Johnson one of the surnames? So that's constantly confirmation for me. My great grandmother's grandmother, great grandmother, they all were in Tennessee. Where's that doggone 80s, 1870 census stuff? There was an 1870 census somewhere. When I put something down, you better believe I've already seen it. My mouse is not working right. 1870. Where's the 1870 census at? That would have made her 30 years old. There are no other censuses here. I'm going to go into beneficiary. Here's the 1870 census. It's saying she's, okay, let me open it all the way up. Okay, now remember I said she's mulatto on the census. I opened up the census and here it is, the M for her as mulatto. Okay, you have to go in and out, in and out. Is very similar to when you're taking tests and they want to know if you're going to mistake the B for an M and what's the M for, and are you going to mistake an F for T or T for B, and they might give you the three of the same letters, M, F, B, and M. And the tests will keep coming up, like you're going for a secretarial test or a filing test, and the M might be before the B, and you get, okay, that's how you have to think when you're doing the research. Is hey, I'm not wasting my time overlooking something. I have to go in and figure out what each one of these elements to this census or to this document is in order for me to be able to decipher or make a collective conscious, intelligent, critical thinking decision about what it actually is, the reality of something. Okay, mulatto. Now, what is a mulatto? A mulatto is someone who is mixed with either Indian and white, Indian, let's say Indian and European, Indian and African, Indian and African and Indian. Those are the admixtures that you can have with a mulatto. Not all of them, but what I'm saying is how a mulatto is created. It's not necessarily black and white. So it's impossible for someone to be mulatto second generation and then that other on that skip, let's say that's grandfather's side, and then you skip to grandmama's side and that's a mulatto or a white Indian there, or not a white but a mulatto Indian, and of course there's Irish. It's impossible to be 80% African. That's one lineage, meaning the maternal lineage. Unless, of course, the Aboriginals are the Israelite blood of the black, or the, what they're trying to say is African. Because remember, Africa hasn't been tested. You really think they tested all them people over there? Heck no. We're talking about they ain't tested over 99.9% of those people. So who are you relating the or comparing and matching the DNA to? Everybody from the indigenous tribes haven't taken tests. Those in Israel, the 1940 incorporated state, are forbidden or prohibited from taking a DNA test. So who is the DNA of the African Americans that are wholeheartedly taking this test? Who are they? I don't even see how people can keep on going on with the lies that they're going on with, knowing that there is a God behind, or who's able to cause wrath. Y'all should get tired of doing all that. All right. Now, there you go, mulatto. And on my father's side, mulatto and everything else. So explain to me where, excuse me for clearing my throat, but explain to me where the 80% African is coming from. All right, so we're going to go out of there. That's how you go in and you pull information and you're looking. Now, if I come over here to the notes, it actually says that Ben Fisher is Creek by blood. If this is the same Ben Fisher, I have went to the Dawes Rolls, found him, card number 184, and he's on the Dawes Roll. This is how you get enrolled. You take this information on each one of those censuses and all these documents, and you submit them to the nations in order to get to your tribe and the band that you are from. Now, if we go to the Dawes Roll and look that up, and I think he has a daughter named Eliza. Let's see. I don't see it. I see Elfie. Is there a Jesse? Joseph. But I gone already. But it's saying Creek by blood. Now, his mother is missing. That's a brick wall. That is the indication. And from North Carolina and from New Bern, which is where the Tuscorians are from, that they, in fact, may be Tuscorians. The natives ran, or the Aborigines during war ran from they were fighting, but to keep themselves alive, they did have to escape, and they did have to go and flee. They did have to flee to the mountains, and a lot of them went to Tennessee. Both my maternal my mother's fathers, no, my mother's, let me get this straight. My mother's father is Pocahontas's sister's lineage. They left North Carolina, Virginians, and they went to Tennessee, Henderson County to be exact. This is my mother's father's mother's people here that's on the screen. All right. So let's see what documents I already have. Not much. So I'm going to go, let's see who's researching as well. Three other people. I'm going to go into her tree and see what she has. No, I don't want her tree, but the individual person. She has almost the same stuff I have. Okay. All right. So she has a township attached to his death. 80. We all have about the same information. All right, so I'm going to go back into the tree because we are still trying to get to, and remember Kroom, a native. Remember it stops there, but it's on the census that she's mulatto. Now, they're from North Carolina and Virginia. Noel, we have the Pattersons here. There's a Johnson, there's captains. There's unknown people here. What did they do to them? Where are they? People missing from here. Here are the Tuscorians. So I'm going to open up Susan Parks. So 1813, there's a lot of documentation, a lot of wills. Oh, I sure need this for something else. I'm gonna open this up. Nope. Now, this page was here. It was a very, very good page at that. I've been searching for this page for, let's say, a month now. When they take the pages like that, that means that they don't want you to know what the timeline is. They don't want you using the information. They don't want you claiming the Indians. They know that we're using this. They know that we are researching. They know that we are coming up with somebody has lied. What have you done to our ancestors? That freaking page that's missing has so much information on it, and I didn't get a chance to print screen it. I didn't get a chance to do what I needed to do for that freaking timeline. But the timeline explained with the Tuscorians saying, with the letters writing, please, you're hurting us. The chiefs begging the government to stop raging war on them. Please don't take all of our land, and you're killing off our women. I remember saying you're unaliving our women and children. Gone. Just what I thought about, I say a month ago. I've been looking for this. I've known about that page for a year. So I'm beginning to see information being removed.